Have you ever been captivated by a horror story so much that when it ended, you felt a deep sense of loss, like you were letting go of a friend? Well, today we're diving into an eerie tale that'll stay with you long after the credits roll. So grab some popcorn, dim the lights, because this isn't just a story, this is our channel. And here's our chilling tale of the Winter of Silence. Winter of 1988. Tokyo glittered, a city draped in neon lights, its streets filled with salarymen and schoolgirls. There was a feeling in the air, a buzz of excitement. It was a time when the streets hummed with the melody of progress. The bustling metropolis was changing fast, leaving its old ways behind. And then there was Misato, a quiet suburb that mirrored Tokyo's evolution. It was a place where neighbors knew each other's names, but not too much more. It was a place where politeness was a wall and secrets bloomed in the cracks. At the end of Misato stood a nondescript two-story house. Peeling paint, a crooked chimney, a garden overgrown. It was a house like many others, except it wasn't. Inside lived a girl named Yumi Takahashi. She was 17, a student with a laugh as sweet as wind chimes. Yumi loved sketching birds in her notebook, dreaming of studying art. She was an ordinary girl, living an ordinary life. That is, until the whispers started. Yumi walked home from school each day through Misato's narrow alleys. It was a route she'd taken hundreds of times, but now the alleys seemed different, quieter. The air thick with a strange heaviness. The familiar streets felt like a labyrinth, and the silence echoed in her ears, but it was the house on Ayase Street that troubled her. It loomed at the end of her route, its windows dark and vacant, its garden a tangled mess. Something about the house disturbed her, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Then one evening, as Yumi hurried home, she paused in front of the house. She heard it, a faint hum coming from inside. It wasn't music, nor was it a television. It was a low, unsettling drone that seemed to vibrate in her bones. Fear pricked at her, urging her to run, but curiosity held her rooted to the spot. She stood there listening, her heart pounding against her ribs. That night, sleep evaded Yumi. The hum from the house reverberated in her dreams, twisting them into a nightmarish landscape. In the morning, she tried to shake off the unsettling feeling. She told herself it was just an old house creaking in the wind. But as days passed, the hum continued, growing louder, more insistent. Yumi couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. She started taking longer routes, avoiding the house, but it was always there, a spectre haunting her thoughts. The house on Ayase Street had become a symbol of Misato's unease, a dark secret festering beneath its idyllic surface. People started talking in hushed voices, sharing stories of the strange occurrences around the house. The once lively alleys of Misato became narrower, the smiles faded from people's faces. One day, Yumi's friend, Aiko, shared a story she'd heard from one of her brothers. Apparently, a group of older boys had taken up residence in the house. Rumors swirled around them, tales of petty crimes and eerie late-night activities. Despite the whispers, the authorities seemed reluctant to intervene, perhaps blinded by Misato's facade of tranquility. The mere thought of such darkness lurking so close sent a chill down Yumi's spine. As the weeks went by, Yumi found herself drawn to the house. It was as if an invisible force was pulling her toward the unfolding mystery. Despite the fear that gnawed at her insides, she felt compelled to uncover the truth. Then one fateful night, armed with nothing but her sketchbook and a flashlight, Yumi approached the house. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she peered through a broken window. What she saw inside made her gasp. The interior was a mess, a jumble of broken furniture and graffiti-covered walls, but it was the sight of the boys that truly startled her. They were gathered in a circle, their faces illuminated by a flickering candle, their expressions unreadable in the dim light. Driven by her need to understand, Yumi crept closer. As she listened intently, trying to decipher their hushed voices, a single word caught her attention: ritual. It was spoken so quietly that she could barely make out the word, yet it echoed in her mind. With a newfound determination, Yumi decided to infiltrate the house and uncover their secret. While the boys were engrossed in their conversation, she slipped inside, her senses on high alert. As she ventured deeper into the house, Yumi stumbled upon a hidden room. Inside, she discovered a disturbing sight: a collection of strange symbols painted on the walls and floor. The room felt heavy, with malevolent energy, and Yumi couldn't help but shiver. She knew she was in the presence of something sinister, something that threatened to engulf her whole. Suddenly, a noise from the other room made her jump. Yumi froze, her heart racing. She desperately tried to quiet her breathing, hoping that whatever was out there wouldn't hear her. Just then, the door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. Yumi's blood ran cold. She had been discovered. The figure emerged from the darkness, and Yumi's worst fears were confirmed. It was one of the boys from the cult. His eyes were wide with alarm, and he was frantically searching the room. Yumi, paralyzed with fear, could only watch as he frantically searched the room, his gaze wild with urgency. Seconds ticked by, each one echoing in the deafening silence. Finally, the boy spotted her hiding behind the bookshelf. His eyes widened in surprise, and he cautiously approached her. The boy's face was etched with concern as he asked her why she was hiding and what she had seen. Yumi hesitated, torn between her fear and her curiosity. Just then, a loud commotion erupted from the other room, and the boy signaled for her to stay quiet. He crept closer, his eyes darting around the room. The boy gestured for her to follow him. He led her through a secret passage concealed behind a bookshelf. It was a narrow, cramped space, but Yumi trusted the boy's guidance and followed him without hesitation. The tunnel opened into a small, dark room. The boy whispered for her to stay hidden and disappeared back the way they came. Moments later, Yumi heard the boys entering the room. Their voices were tense, their words laced with urgency. Suddenly, the door burst open, and the boys dashed out, knocking Yumi off balance. Startled, Yumi stumbled out of the room, bumping into the boys. They turned to her, their faces a mix of surprise and suspicion. Yumi's heart pounded in her chest as she realized she had been caught. As the boys closed in on her, their faces distorted with anger, Yumi braced for the worst, but their reactions were more confused than hostile. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with uncertainty. One of them, Taro, broke into a panicked sweat. "She shouldn't be here," he blurted out, his voice laced with panic. His words hung in the air, and the other boys seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. "We have to get rid of her," hissed another boy, his voice low and menacing. "No," Taro exclaimed, stepping forward. "I'll take her away. You guys don't need to get involved." Without waiting for a response, Taro grabbed Yumi's hand and pulled her away from the house. They ran through the dark streets, the distant shouts of the boys echoing behind them. Taro led her away from the house, his breathing heavy. He stopped and turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, "for helping me." Yumi, still shaken, could only nod in response. She didn't understand his words, but she sensed the urgency in his voice. They walked in silence for a while, the darkness pressing in on them. Finally, Taro spoke again. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I need to hide you." He led her to a small, run-down apartment building and helped her climb onto a fire escape. "Stay here," he whispered, "until I come back for you." Before Yumi could respond, Taro disappeared down the street. Yumi found herself alone.